Express train number 1, Vladivostok, Moscow departs in 5 minutes.
May I? Of course, let's go quickly.
Young man, what are you recording?
Hello, I'm a tourist recording here. It's beautiful. May I?
Tourist?
The route is long and we need to send rail cars to other cities.
Which is your car?
Has car 00 arrived?
Faster!
After a brief stop in Javarovsk and in Birobidjan, now comes the moment of truth, the real Trans-Siberian. 6 days stuck on a train to Moscow. Let's go! After stopping in the cities of Javarovsk and Birobidjan, and after learning in the previous episodes a bit more about the story of the hunter Dersu Uzala and the Jewish Autonomous Oblast, this time we're diving fully into the journey of the legendary Trans-Siberian, the longest continuous railway route on the planet. As its name suggests, the Trans-Siberian Railway is any rail route that crosses the region of Siberia, a vast territory that stretches from the Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean. As railway connections between cities have increased, the possible routes to cross Russia by train have also grown, leaving travelers with a wide range of options to choose from, adapted to their pace and needs. There are different branches and even options that cross other countries, such as the Trans-Mongolian or the Trans-Manchurian. The latter was designed by the Tsars at the beginning of the last century to connect Moscow with Vladivostok through Chinese territory, when the bridge over the Amur River had not yet been completed. Another example is the Baikal-Amur line, also known as BAM, built between the 70s and 80s. It separates from the original route to the west of Lake Baikal to skirt it from the north and continue parallel to the main line. Although air and road transport have been gaining ground, there is currently a train that covers the Moscow-Vladivostok route without interruption, the Rossiya. Though it no longer makes all the same stops as a century ago, it remains the Russian network's most iconic and historic service. The journey takes 6 days and 22 hours, almost a week, which is a considerable improvement compared to the 2 weeks it took in its early days. To give you an idea of prices, a Platzkart, third-class ticket cost me just under €150, about the same as a plane ticket. The main difference is the flight takes 9 hours, while the train takes 7 days. In this video, I invite you to join me on the iconic Rossiya train straight to Moscow, so we can get a closer look at the places it passes through and the people who bring this legend on rails to life. Here it is. Here you have it, train number 1. (001) to be more exact. Rossiya.
Через вагон, через меня не надо, а так можно через вагон.
Here it is. This is going to be our spot with Miguel for the next 48 hours, until he gets to Ulan-Ude, and this right here is going to be my spot for the next 6 days. We left about an hour ago. We're on our way, crossing the Russian Far East, which is also very beautiful now in autumn, what the Russians call the Golden Autumn. Because of the golden colors of the falling leaves, the countryside being so yellow, and the nature here is incredible. This has just started, and the beauty of nature is already surprising. It's a huge stretch of land, with hardly any houses. Some roads cross it, and there are freight trucks making their way to Vladivostok, just like the Trans-Siberian, only by road. First time I'm riding in car 0000. The very first car of all, I didn't even know it existed. Here you have the locomotive and the engineer taking a nap. Well, it's not the one driving now, the one in front. This one is resting. I want to show you the schedule and the itinerary of this train. As I told you before, it's the 001, Vladivostok to Moscow. With 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 time zones. We cross 8 time zones. I got on here in Birobidjan with Miguel. This is the part I did from Vladivostok. So you can see the comparison this little bit, and all of this is what I still have ahead of me. 6 days, more than 6 days. I'm going to pass through legendary places like Chita, Ulan-Ude, a Buddhist region, Baikalsk on Lake Baikal, Irkutsk, Krasnoyarsk in the heart of Siberia, Novosibirsk, Yekaterinburg, Perm, Kostroma, Yaroslavl, and finally Moscow. Also, this is a fast train, so in theory it makes very few stops and they're very short. The longest stop I'll have will be between 40 and 50 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, and then there are a lot of stops that last 5 minutes, 1 minute, 3 minutes. Those stops are going to be what keeps me going. That's when I can stop, get some fresh air, stretch my legs, buy some food, and the rest of the time I'll be stuck here in the carriage. And next to it you have train 002, Moscow to Vladivostok. It's the same route but in reverse. So 001 isn't Moscow to Vladivostok like a lot of people would think, it's actually Vladivostok to Moscow. First long stop of the trip in Skovorodino. Last night there was supposed to be another long stop, but we were delayed an hour. But what happened is that during the night they made up for it, or so I've been told. We've reduced our lateness from an hour to about 3 or 4 minutes. And now, we've already set the clock forward by an hour. We've moved from one time zone to another. Just one of the 8 time changes I'll make during this trip. I haven't even spent 24 hours on the train yet. And it's already starting to drag. My companions are a drunk guy who's coughing all the time without any teeth, and a guy who looks like a Siberian lumberjack, you know, strong and rough, who cuts his sausage with a box cutter, one of those used for cutting cardboard boxes. Thank goodness Miguel is here with me and makes the trip a bit more enjoyable. And this is what this station looks like, full of freight cars and other locomotives. I think that train over there is carrying mail. It's a whole train dedicated to mail. A huge train. What I've realized is that I must be one of the few, if not the only one at least in my car, who's making the whole trip all the way to Moscow. The rest, most of them, get off at Novosibirsk, the capital of Siberia, so to speak, the nerve center. I guess I'll have these companions until Novosibirsk, but then new ones will get on. For now, the train is pretty empty. This I really didn't expect. While I was looking out the window, something caught my attention, and it's what looks like an old gulag or a lager, a forced labor camp I think, because there's a semi-abandoned village with one part that's completely abandoned, and then another small part with houses where you can see cars and people. And a lot of buildings with a fence, a gate and barbed wire, and you can even see the towers where the guards would stand to keep watch. Thank you.
Wait a moment before leaving.
May I come in?
Of course, come on, quickly.
Is there no grilled meat left? Is it already finished?
Yes.
We have a 25-minute stop, so we have to run to get grilled meat. Mikhail, write or call, and we'll save some for you.
Call ahead next time and we'll save you something.
So there's no grilled meat left?
It's all gone. Maybe try another store.
Not there either, we were just there.
Do you have shashlik?
No, there isn't any.
It's sold out? You're kidding me.
A sausage bun and a chicken drumstick, please. This is cheese, right?
Yes, the cheese.
One and Chinese noodles too.
331.35. Do you want a bag?
And bread.
Do you want a bag?
Yes.
The bag is 10. White or rye bread?
Rye. Do you have gingerbread?
Yes, but only with apples.
All right, with apple.
861 rubles.
The products are flying off the shelves. There was no shashlik left, but I managed to get some supplies. Here we have what I had time to buy, what we managed to buy at the store, which emptied out right away. Chinese noodles, which I saw the Russians were asking for, so I did the same. These are spicy. A chunk of bread? A piece of bread? Well, cheese. Sausage and dough, which is literally what it's called. Chicken, which they sell here vacuum-packed, already cooked. This is potato powder with bread. And the classic Tula gingerbread. This is a sweet that has apple in it, in this case. This is a basic overview of what you can find in the little shops. Basically, I think these things are always there. It doesn't usually change much, we were laughing. Well, at least look here at the presentation they give you and then what you actually get. Workers. We just made a stop in Mogocha. We're already in the Savalkaisk Krai, in the Savalkaisk Oblast, which means something like beyond Baikal. Take a look at the tremendous locomotive that used to run on these Trans-Siberian tracks. There is the inscription, "Powerful worker of the Great Trans-Siberian. It will always remain on this pedestal." You can see how the Trans-Siberian started with this type of locomotive and how it is today, and the type of carriages and locomotives it uses. You see a lot of towns like this. That grew precisely because of the Trans-Siberian. This one, Mogocha, is perhaps the largest we've seen since we left the last stop. It stretches all the way up there. You can tell it's a railway center where a lot of goods pass through. You can hear the trains non-stop, like a goods distribution center. The Trans-Siberian has these things. It made many barely existing towns grow due to trade and the movement of goods. Before the arrival of the Trans-Siberian, the settlements in Siberia were generally isolated settlements connected by river routes that combined river and land transportation. Rivers like the Ob, the Lena, or the Yenisei, three of the largest rivers in the world, supported the movement of travelers and goods, while also shaping the region with settlements and outposts. These routes, established from the 18th century onwards, were known as tract, a state-regulated road or route where horse relay stations could be found every 20 or 30 kilometers. With this system, travel from Moscow to the Pacific took 2 or 3 months, depending on extreme weather. And as a curiosity, most of the tea that arrived in Europe came through these routes from the Chinese border, which gave it the name of the Siberian tea route. With the arrival of the Trans-Siberian Railway, this archipelago of Siberian settlements lost its importance, falling into oblivion, and only those that remained near the railway line continued to develop. Perhaps the most notable case is Tomsk, the most important city in Siberia at that time, a cultural and university center, which in just a few years was surpassed in importance by Novosibirsk, a newly created city along the train route. On a smaller scale than Novosibirsk, there are cases like Mogocha and similar towns. Settlements created strictly to serve the construction of the Trans-Siberian, whose existence is historically tied to technical maintenance, railway logistics, and the exploitation of the surrounding mining deposits.
The train will stop for 27 minutes. Thank you for your attention.
A brief update. It's already been more than 48 hours since we left Pirovichan. Miguel gets off here, we're in Ulan-Ude. And behind me, I have another steam locomotive that used to run along these Trans-Siberian lines, and I still have 100 more hours to go before I reach Moscow. And on top of that, without Miguel. Miguel, good luck in Ulan-Ude. Our paths part here.
See you later, guys.
Buryat booze, a few tomatoes, tea, and the 30-ruble black coffee.
Чай и кофе, вот этот черный, который 30 стоит.
It's tea from Buryatia, right?
It comes with milk and salt.
Alright, I'll take it. Give me 3 and some black tea as well. Since I won't be able to stop in Buryatia, a Buddhist region, one of the 3 in Russia, along with Tuva and Kalmykia, if I'm not mistaken, I'm at least going to try the typical food from here. Look what I've got. Dough filled with meat. Cheers. After having eaten noodles every day for 2 days, this tastes like a real delicacy. Here you go. I never would have realized how vast the Russian Far East is if I hadn't come on the Trans-Siberian. By plane it feels shorter, but on the Trans-Siberian, it took us almost 3 days to get here, to Lake Baikal. And technically, for some geographers, Siberia begins at Lake Baikal, all the way to the Urals. In fact, for the Soviet administration, that's when the term Siberia changed, which used to cover everything all the way to the Pacific Ocean, up to Lake Baikal. And they called the part that goes from Lake Baikal to the Pacific the Far East. Far West. You can tell we're getting closer to Lake Baikal. Ulan-Ude is about 6 or 7 hours from Baikal by train. It's a shame since I'm seeing it at night, not really seeing it though. I'll come back. Lake Baikal was one of the most difficult obstacles for the Trans-Siberian engineers to overcome, due to its extreme depth. And because of the surrounding terrain, the railway line was interrupted when it reached the lake. For years, in order not to stop the movement of troops, travelers and goods, the Empire resorted to a unique solution at that time in railway transport, transporting trains by ship. 2 icebreaker ships were commissioned, the SS Angara and the SS Baikal, the latter being a massive icebreaker that could hold up to 25 wagons. During the harshest part of winter, when the icebreakers couldn't handle the accumulated thickness of the ice layer, they even resorted to laying rails on top of the frozen lake. The railroad ties were wider, the wagons were uncoupled to distribute the weight, and they were pulled by horses. Finally, in 1905, the Circumbaikal section was inaugurated, putting an end to this temporary and risky solution. Dubbed the jewel in the Tsar's crown, this stretch of just 260 kilometers came at a high cost, as 33 tunnels and more than 200 bridges and viaducts were built to overcome the challenging terrain. Back on the train, the mountainous landscape that had dominated the horizon for these 3 days was becoming increasingly flat, with the occasional hill in the distance and forests and shrubs in golden hues. Rural settlements, where livestock is abundant and wooden buildings are common, could occasionally be seen through the window, as well as large factories or hydroelectric plants on the shores of reservoirs. This is an indication that in this, one of the least densely populated regions in the world, the cold iron of the Trans-Siberian tracks leaves behind a warm trail of life and civilization. After getting some fresh air during the stop at Ulan-Ude, although, to be honest, not as much as I would have liked, we set course for Baikal. We passed through railway towns shrouded in a thick mist that gave the area around this majestic lake a mysterious feel, as if it were telling me that this wasn't the time to reveal itself, saving it for another occasion. In this way, we traveled along the tracks bordering its shore at night, without the slightest glimpse of water or shoreline outside the window, and so, accompanied by the ever-present rattling of the train, another night the day came to an end, passing the halfway point of this adventure. And where tiredness, monotony and boredom were taking their toll more and more, wearing away the romance of the journey. New stop to stock up 15 minutes. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed now. I only get out every 4 hours for 15 minutes, 20, if I'm lucky half an hour, the rest of the stops are just a minute and I can't do anything. But take a look at the stop we're at now, a very small one in the middle of Siberia. We're already getting close to Krasnoyarsk. I've got myself some bread, a sandwich and a Siberian sausage. And there, in the background, a statue caught my attention, that one over there, with a mother and a child, as if saying goodbye to their father, to her husband. I imagine it's because he's going to work, taking the Trans-Siberian line, heading off to distant lands. And there in the background, again, another steam locomotive, a coal one, like the ones you see all over these stations in Siberia. In almost every one, you'll find an old locomotive that used to run on these tracks. And this is the shop where I got my supplies, little stalls that keep us going. Literally, because the other option you have on the trains is instant noodles, powdered mashed potatoes, and honestly, by the second day you're already sick of them, you're fed up with noodles. That's it, back to the train. Here's the menu. Delicatessen, much better than the noodles. The Siberian sausage. I forgot a knife, so I have to eat it in bites. Delicious. It's much like Spanish salami, a nice bite of tomato. And black bread. And for dessert, a Buddhist tea. Well, that's what I call it. These are the teas you can find in this region, Buddhist teas. I bought it in Buryatia. It's made with milk and it's salty, although it comes in powder form. It's this one here. It's this type of tea that you find in Nepal, in Tibet, and throughout all these Buddhist areas, and a tube of shushanka, which is meringue milk, if I'm not mistaken, or liquid caramel. Very typical in Russia. This was given to me by the car attendant, since I'm becoming friends with her and we exchange gifts. That's one of the good things about spending so much time with the same car attendant. Here's to you. Cheers. She told me they were really good, and she wasn't wrong. Excellent. This feels more like a food tour than a train trip. On board the train, time seemed to pass more and more slowly, as if the windows were a projector playing a movie on a loop. With the train rattling, the scene can feel repetitive and you lose track of time once you stop checking the clock. After leaving behind the historic city of Irkutsk, the largest of the cities near Lake Baikal, we entered deep into Siberia, heading toward Krasnoyarsk, the administrative heart of what is known as Central Siberia. The taiga becomes omnipresent, only occasionally interrupted by a rural settlement or by huge sawmills along the tracks. This region is one of the main hubs of Russia's timber industry, where the exploitation of this resource has become a fundamental pillar of the economy. From the train, you can see huge piles of perfectly aligned logs and freight locomotives maneuvering on industrial sidings, ready to transport the raw material to markets in Asia and Europe. We are now fully entering what is known as the West Siberian Plain, considered the largest uninterrupted plain in the world. It covers an area of approximately 2.5 million square kilometers. It stretches from the foothills of the Ural Mountains to the valley of the Yenisei River, characterized by an extremely flat terrain, where changes in elevation are barely noticeable. This geography facilitates the formation of one of the most extensive wetland systems on the planet, since the land has barely any slope to drain the meltwater. Besides its ecological value, this plain is a global strategic reserve, containing some of the world's largest natural gas and oil deposits beneath its sediments. Y petróleo más grandes de la Tierra. After several hours of traveling surrounded by this untamed nature, the lights of civilization begin to gain ground, and finally the train enters Krasnoyarsk at nightfall, where the steel structure of the bridge over the Yenisei River welcomes us. Finally, a bit of freedom after being locked up and seeing nothing but stations. Well, it's not that different. I'm in the central square of Krasnoyarsk Station, the capital of eastern Siberia, located on both banks of the Yenisei River, which flows all the way to the Arctic. I won't have much time to see anything because by the time you get in and out, you've already lost 15 minutes and we only have a 40-minute stop, 35 according to the Provodnitsa, the car attendant. Take a look. The first thing that greets us here is a mural. I don't know if it's Lenin. It looks like him, but I'm not really sure. Either way, it's likely dedicated to railway workers or the October Revolution. I can't read it, but it covers the entire wall of this building in the station square, the post office building. I haven't even been walking here for 10 minutes or less, and they're already calling boarding for my train. Well, this is the station square. There's not much to it, with the trolley buses full of cars, raining, although not snowing. It could be worse, but it is cold. It's cold. And here behind me, a lion with a shovel and a sickle. I don't know what it means. I know that gold was found here, and I guess the sickle is because something was cultivated, although here in Siberia, who knows what. I'll look it up later to see what this lion with the shovel and the sickle means. Wow, and the Krasnoyarsk station, huge, very beautiful. This is the largest I've seen among all the Siberian train stops. Alright, let's go back inside again. By the way, look at the sign here on the door. 50 years since the construction of the Baikal-Amur main line, another Trans-Siberian line that crosses the entire Baikal and Amur, and I still have to do it. As expected, in the souvenir shops there's always some taxidermied Siberian animal and porcelain bears and owls. Hello? A potato empanada, please. 1. That's not necessary. 60 rubles, right?
Хорошо.
A few supplies from Grandma in Krasnoyarsk. Now the train is really going to fill up with people. According to what the Provodnitsa, the carriage attendant, told me, a whole school group is getting on now. Enjoy your meal. After almost 4 days on the train, more or less, I already feel like my clothes, which I've been using as pajamas, are already part of my skin, so I'm going to take a shower. This here is the shower. Normally it costs 150 rubles, but in our car it's free. Also, I don't have flip-flops, so this will really test my feet. I have to say that Russian bathrooms are very clean. Every hour, like clockwork, they clean them. All things considered, it's not bad. Here we go. My first shower on a train, and it's the Trans-Siberian. That's it. It's nice and warm. I press the button. And here you have it. It's that easy. The button, as you can see, gives you 20 seconds. Hey, that's great. It's nice and warm. This thing is swinging. How nice. I really needed this. Like new. Every morning, it's true that you can freshen up a bit, they give you your little towel, but nothing compares to a shower. Now my energy bar is fully charged again.
Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye. Good morning from Novosibirsk, the most important city in Siberia and the longest of the 132 stops this train makes after Khabarovsk. I have an hour, so I'm going to hurry and see what I can discover. Look, the first thing I see before leaving the station is the steam locomotive. This one is really old. I don't know if you can see it. It's inside this display case, made of wood and iron. Novosibirsk was founded as a village to build the Trans-Siberian Railway, which would cross the Ob Bridge. In fact, it was called Novonikolaevsk in honor of Tsar Nicholas II. Precisely, the construction of the Trans-Siberian Railway, as happened with many of these cities here in Siberia and the Far East, made them grow economically. In fact, the Novosibirsk station is the largest you will find on this Trans-Siberian route, and here it is, behind me, with this magnificent green color that I had already seen in photos. And finally, I have it in front of me. Impressive. Look how big it is. 5 degrees. Welcome to Siberia. 4 days ago I could wear a t-shirt in the Far East, and here in Siberia you already have to wear a jacket. Enough talk, let's check out the subway. This subway, the one in Novosibirsk, was the first in Siberia, and although it's not very big, it has its own history. As I said before, it was called Novosibirsk, but it changed its name after the revolution in 1926. And it was always a prosperous city, although of course it went through the hardships of the revolution and the civil war, and later, during Soviet times, it became an industrial center here in the Siberian region. Today it has 1,600,000 inhabitants. Here it is, the metro, 35 rubles. Here it is, the token, the Novosibirsk metro token. Don't tell me it's not nice. The metro, as I said before, is very small. There are 2 lines, and it was built in the late 70s, early 80s. Here's how this station looks. It looks a lot like the newer Moscow stations with that more sober Soviet style. Here you have it, the Novosibirsk metro. Wow, look at the coat of arms. Although all these Soviet and ex-Soviet metros are very similar and alike, each one keeps its own essence and distinctive touch.
The doors are closing. Next station, Siberia. Platform on the left.
Wow, look at this station. How beautiful, Sibirskaya from Siberia, the Siberia station. Look at these murals, kinds of mosaics with stones of different colors, the explorers on horseback, the birds with nature motifs, a lot of animals. Of course, the columns are a must. Also, cave paintings of the people, of the ancient inhabitants of these areas, the natives, and more animal murals. And of native inhabitants together, pulled by the huskies. That's it, I have to hurry, I don't have much time. Let's go. The main difference with the Moscow metro is that there are a lot of ads. It's packed with ads, just like in St. Petersburg and other places in Russia. In Moscow, it used to be like that too. You could see a lot of ads, from what I've been told, but with the new mayor, that's something he decided to remove. He thought it didn't look good, and now you don't see a single one. However, in this corridor, look, on both sides, boom, it's full of posters and ads. I'm going to speed up because I have half an hour left to catch the train. That subway is packed. Look at all those people. New station, after Siberskia station, Lenin Square, and look at the murals they have here. The year of the revolution, 1917, with a torch breaking the chains, symbolizing freedom. It's the first time I've seen this symbolism of the torch and the chains. Here in Russia, and over on the other side of the platform, there's a flag with Lenin's face and what looks like the Kremlin in Moscow. This is the station. Well, I'm saying goodbye. We're heading out to the street now. Here you have it, Lenin, a huge statue they have here, a monument accompanied by the soldiers of the revolution, who look like a worker and a peasant woman, and Lenin, imposing, the biggest of them all. On this pedestal, in the center of Lenin Square and behind this Lenin monument, that thing you see there, it's the Novosibirsk Ballet and Opera Theater, the largest in all of Russia, even bigger than the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow. Impressive. Tell me, please, I'm taking the train to Moscow now. What do you recommend I take with me for the trip?
You can take any salad, they're freshly made.
You can also take a portion of salmon or these here, which are cold smoked.
Alright, then a salad please. It's all from Novosibirsk, right?
It's all made by us.
I understand. As part of the food tour I'm putting together, Siberian fish couldn't be left out. I'll try it later on the train and show it to you. I'm here now, inside. The train station is really nice, huh? With the columns, and up there you can see the inscription of Komsomol, the communist youth, on the capital. Wow! I've taken a look at this lobby. Those are some impressive lamps. These marble lamps are just as impressive, aren't they? They look like they're from the Moscow metro. The main lobby is really spacious. See the sickles and hammers on the lamp grills or vent. Hi, I'm a tourist filming. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Young man, what are you recording?
I'm recording because it's beautiful. Is that not allowed?
Tourist?
Yes, now I'm going to Moscow. This is the camera. Is it allowed to take pictures?
Of what? Of the station?
Yes, of this.
Alright.
Good, thank you. We made it out of there, we got away. Well, as I was saying, it's spectacular. I would stay longer in this city, what a shame. But I'll be back. Wow, that's it. Back to the train, this is mine, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this express tour of Novosibirsk. Notice the father and child and mother and child saying goodbye. Statues like these are common at stops along the Trans-Siberian. We've gained another hour in the time zone. Well, it's gone back an hour. Today I plan to cross another time zone. Out of 8, I've already crossed 3. It'll be 4.
Fast train number 1, Vladivostok, Moscow. Leaves in 5 minutes from platform 1.
Wait.
Which is your car?
Car 00. Am I almost there?
Faster!
The girl is already rushing me. That's it. After a quick visit to Novosibirsk, it was time to board the beloved train, the steed on rails. And once again, forests, giant factories, and wagons transporting goods could be seen when I looked out the window. Thus, we continued our journey toward the Ural Mountains, the geographical border that separates the European continent from Asia, and finally, we left behind vast Siberia. Shortly before dawn, around 5:30 in the morning, we arrived at the historic city of Yekaterinburg, where the Bolsheviks ended the lives of the Tsars, putting an end to centuries of Romanov dynasty. The last major city on this route before crossing the mountains and heading toward Moscow. Good morning from the Urals. It's 7 in the morning, and right now we're crossing the Urals. There's just a little bit left before we go from the Asian part to the European part of Russia, which means I can already say I've finished crossing all of Siberia. Now, as soon as it gets a bit lighter and clearer, I'll show you some of the landscape. The mountains are starting to come back after the Siberian plains. Yesterday we passed Omsk and Tyumen after Novosibirsk, and we changed the time zone again. I'm keeping track of the hours. Now we're 3 hours ahead of Spain. But today we finally enter Moscow time, so today we've completed all 8 time zones of the entire Trans-Siberian. I'm happy. These are like little psychological battles that help me get through the trip. I'm having breakfast, as you can see, a Siberian breakfast, smoked fish. This is a type of salmon, and shrimp salad with mustard, an unusual breakfast. But well, what can you do? Cheers! Well, here you have it. It might not look like it, but this is a delicacy, really delicious. This is what the little restaurant I've set up looks like. The tomato, the fish, the bread, a coffee with a pastry that I just bought. I've met all kinds of travelers in these 6 days, from grandmothers going to visit their relatives. 6 years later or 8 years later, after I've been talking with them, and they remembered the Soviet times, like with a lot of certainty, I don't know, that feeling that the past was always better. Also with workers, with builders, some from Armenia who were returning home after seasons working in Russia. Other workers from the Far East, from Vladivostok and Khabarovsk, who were sent to Novosibirsk to work on a particle accelerator they're building there. I had no idea. Super interesting. Also, of course, soldiers going to war, to the special military operation as they call it here. What you'll generally see here is people making short trips. Either they travel halfway to Yekaterinburg, or from Yekaterinburg to Moscow, or from Vladivostok to Novosibirsk, Krasnoyarsk, to the center of Siberia. It's tough since it's 4 days, no way around it, and you have to spend them stuck on the train. That's it, we're in Perm now. Officially we've crossed the Urals, we're no longer in the Asian part or in Siberia, and we're in the European part of Russia. There are only 24 hours left to reach kilometer 0 of the Trans-Siberian in Moscow. I can't believe it. Tell me please, what are you doing that for?
We're topping up the water supply. For tea, for the bathroom.
I understand, thank you. It's drinking water.
Yes.
Here in Perm, just a few kilometers away on the outskirts of the city, there is one of the last gulags that you can visit. It's a kind of museum. A gulag turned into a museum. In the deep forests of the Urals and on the banks of the Chusovaya River was the Perm 36 camp, one of the many forced labor and detention camps commonly known in the Soviet era as gulags. Since the Tsarist era, the Trans-Siberian Railway and its branches were not only used to transport settlers and goods, but also prisoners. Criminals, prisoners of war, dissidents and exiles were loaded into specially equipped cars for transporting inmates, the Stolopins. These were characterized by barely having any windows, and depending on the prisoner's status and the time period, they might have a stove for heating and beds, or prisoners could be crowded together and chained in metal cells. With Stalin's death in 1953, the Gulag system began to be dismantled, although Perm 36 was one of those that remained until almost the fall of the Soviet Union, finally closing in 1987. As I was saying, today it is a museum and one of the best preserved gulags, if not the only one. On its grounds you can still see the barbed wire and the perimeter fence, the guard posts and the various spaces and rooms where the inmates spent their days. Did you attach a car? How does that work?
Some of them couple and others uncouple.
Do they always do that?
Yes, the route is long and it's necessary to send cars to other cities. With separate trains, it's not as convenient.
There have been changes in the schedule. We arrived at 9:08 and left at 9:31.
All right, why do they do that?
Sometimes when there is construction on the tracks, the schedule is restructured.
I see, were attached in Yekaterinburg, right?
No, in Yekaterinburg it's car 32. We were attached in Belogorsk.
I just found out that they keep changing the schedule of the train, so we no longer have the same schedule as when we left. Good thing I didn't decide to take a long walk, because the difference was 10 minutes, 15 to be exact. They keep joining train cars. The guys in the cities have been telling me, some get detached, others keep joining, but one thing's certain, the one I'm on, and the first ones go all the way from Ustok to Moscow. Hello, do you have a cook?
Why do you ask?
I was told a few days ago there wasn't one, just in case.
We still don't have a cook.
I understand. And is it possible to get something hot to eat? Borscht, solyanka?
We have borscht, but not solyanka. We'll have it when we get to Moscow.
All right, thank you. Another thing with this train is that they don't have a chef. They haven't had a cook since Vladivostok. I don't know why. They're short-staffed and only have certain dishes, and others they just don't cook at all. A historic moment in the trip. I'm finally on Moscow time. It's finally the same time as in Moscow, after 8 time zones. It's hard to believe. The video is going to be short, I don't know, maybe 20-30 minutes, whatever, but this is more than 150 hours long. What am I saying? It's crazy. So many hours looking out the window, watching the trees go by, the scenery that changes a little, but not that much. Honestly, I expected it to be different. There are mountains from time to time, forests, and then most of the time, well, you see forest, the tracks go right through the middle of the forest. Almost always, there's the occasional city, wooden houses, and some industry here and there. I had already done parts of the Trans-Siberian, but never the whole thing and never all in one go. I was really curious about it. Of course, this is a personal challenge and a record, spending so much time on a train, traveling all across Russia. From end to end, practically, the sun is already setting, and soon, there are about 18 hours left before reaching Moscow and completing the 9,288 kilometers, more or less. One of the things about this train, these higher-end trains, is that they are like a higher status compared to the more basic ones, is that you can connect to the network they have, a kind of internal Wi-Fi, where you can buy products, order food, and watch movies. For example, I just watched the one about the world champion, which is about Karpov and chess. Last big stop before Moscow, Kirov, a city that also developed a lot because of the Trans-Siberian at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th, and it's a historic city. It's quite old already. It was part of Muscovy for several hundred years. Take a look, that's the coat of arms, and this is the station. 20 minutes to walk around a little more, to stretch our legs. After 6 days barely going out or walking, it gets really tiring. And let's see if I can get something to eat. I saw there was a famous kvass here. Although the city is called Kirov in honor of the revolutionary from the early 20th century, it actually had another name before. They gave it this one just a few years ago. It used to be Vityakh, like the river that flows through here. Can you make it to go? Well, that's it. Done and dusted. Kvass Vyatsky? I made a mistake. The town is Vyatsk. It was Vyatsk. And that's where the kvass factory comes from, Vyatsky kvass. Something a bit more typical to add to the list on this Trans-Siberian journey. From the creation of Moscow as a simple outpost of Kievan Rus in the middle of the 12th century, to becoming the capital of the unified Tsardom of Russia, the city gradually rose to prominence. The various principalities that made up the Grand Duchy of Moscow, or Muscovy, became strong in the face of the Mongol invasions which in the 13th century had subdued these and other regions. Through trade, tax collection, and conquest, they made their way, controlling forests and river routes. Furthermore, after the fall of Constantinople and the Byzantine Empire to the Ottomans in 1453, Muscovy emerged as the heir to the Christian tradition and began to call itself the Third Rome. Cities like Yaroslavl, Kostroma, Suzdal, or Vladimir are some of the historic cities that belong to what is known as the Golden Ring, a group of cities where you can still see the essence of ancient Muscovy in their streets and buildings. In the case of Vyatsk or Vyatka, it was not an ordinary principality, but rather a commercial republic of free men, similar to Novgorod. Focused on the trade of furs and wax, it ended up being conquered by Muscovy at the end of the 15th century, and today it is one of the most important industrial and logistical centers in the Volga and Ural regions, whose Trans-Siberian routes have turned it into a strategic dry port. After making the last major stop of the last day of the journey, and once I bought and tasted the local kvass at my spot, a soda made from bread that's typical in Slavic countries, the feeling of tiredness and accumulated exhaustion gave way to a brief and intense sense of euphoria. Because the next day, after thousands of kilometers traveled by rail, we would finally arrive in Moscow. Thank you, gentlemen. It's now a reality. Tomorrow I arrive in Moscow. I'm going to sleep. That's it. We've already arrived at Yaroslavsky station. Here I leave the spot that's been mine for these 9,288 kilometers from Vladivostok to Moscow. I'm not getting on a train again for several months, and when I do, on the side, I'm not planning to do it. I'll stick with these. They're the good ones.
See you later.
Goodbye. Thank you very much. There you have it, Platform 1 at Yaroslavsky Station. The Vladivostok-Moscow train. And the obelisk, or the post, that marks the beginning, and in my case the end, of the Trans-Siberian journey. Kilometer 0 and kilometer 9,298, which is the one located in Vladivostok. So, from this epic place, that's another adventure completed, another challenge met, and a historic moment for the channel. I've crossed all of Russia by train. I'm ending the video here, dog-tired. It's tough, huh? After so long on the train, I can't believe I already missed the rattling. On solid ground, finally. Alright, see you next time. Bye. Unbelievable. See, just like I said, it's getting dark already. The day doesn't last at all here.
Это ваша линия? Да. Я мало не съехал. Салихард.
That's crazy. It's like a whole highway.